I will never forget the sound of his voice that afternoon. It was supposed to be just another ordinary day, a Tuesday like any other. I was at work in Wilmington, Delaware, and I told my coworkers that I would dash home quickly during lunch to check on Martin, my husband of 25 years. He had complained of feeling unwell that morning, holding his stomach, his face pale, and I could not bear the thought of him lying helpless at home. But when I opened the front door quietly, my world shifted. The house was unusually silent except for one sound, the low hum of Martin's voice drifting from the bedroom upstairs. His tone was not the weak, sickly tone of a man recovering in bed. No, it was strong, alive, filled with warmth I had not heard directed at me in years. I froze in the hallway, my palms sweating as I strained to listen. And then it happened. The words that pierced through me like glass shattering inside my chest. I miss you too. I cannot wait until we can finally be together without hiding. The phone call that destroyed 25 years of love, trust, and every memory we built together. And it was only the beginning. Before I continue with the storm that came after that moment, let me pause here to appreciate you, my listener. If you are new to this channel, thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you are a returning viewer, I cannot thank you enough for coming back again and again. To everyone who is not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because it is the fuel and the energy that keeps this channel alive. Do not forget to like, comment, and share your thoughts below because your voice matters here. Now, let us get back into the story. My name is Nancy. I am 51 years old, and for more than half of my life, I have been married to Martin, my husband. We built our lives here in Delaware, raising 2 children who are now grown, building a home filled with memories, Sunday dinners, birthdays, Christmas mornings, with laughter echoing through these walls. Martin was not just my husband. He was my partner, my confidant, the man I believed would hold my hand through every storm until our final breath. For 25 years, I trusted him with my whole being. But as I stood frozen in that hallway, listening to his voice dripping with intimacy for someone else, I felt as though the ground beneath me cracked open. I pressed myself against the wall, trembling. My ears burned with every word he spoke. His laugh, light, boyish, carefree, stabbed me deeper than any knife. Because I knew that laugh. It used to belong to me. And then, the moment that sealed my breaking heart. Martin said, "She still thinks I am sick today. She will never suspect a thing." My knees buckled. He was talking about me. I was the fool he deceived so easily, the woman who left her desk at work to check on her sick husband while he was busy whispering love into someone else's ear. I wanted to storm in, to snatch the phone from his hand, to scream until the walls crumbled. But something inside me stopped. Instead, I stayed hidden, my heart pounding in my throat as tears blurred my vision. I needed to hear more. I needed to know the truth. And then I heard a name I never expected, a name that would twist this betrayal into something far darker than I could have imagined. That name was the beginning of the storm that would tear my life apart. I stood there, my back pressed to the cold wall, every nerve in my body straining to catch the next word. My hands shook so violently I had to clench them into fists just to stay upright. I prayed I had misheard. I prayed I had imagined it. But then Martin said the name again. Clear, deliberate, intimate. Caroline. My sister's name. My own flesh and blood. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My chest locked tight and I slid down the wall until I was crouched on the floor, clutching my knees like a child afraid of the dark. Only this was no darkness. It was betrayal, burning so bright it blinded me. Caroline, my younger sister, the woman I trusted with my deepest secrets, the aunt who spoiled my children with gifts, who called me her rock, who stood by my side through every storm. My own sister was the voice on the other end of Martin's phone. I heard him whisper again, his voice trembling with desire. "I promise you, we will find a way. She will never see it coming. You are all I think about." I pressed my palm against my mouth to muffle the sob that threatened to escape. My husband of 25 years, my sister, the two people who should have loved me most conspiring behind my back. My mind raced, memories flashing like lightning, the way Caroline had always lingered a little too long during family dinners, laughing too easily at Martin's jokes, the sudden excuses she made to visit Delaware when she claimed she just needed time away, the look in Martin's eyes whenever she entered the room, an unspoken spark I had dismissed as harmless. But now, every piece clicked into place like a cruel puzzle. I stayed there in silence until Martin ended the call. I heard him sigh contentedly, then the sound of the bed creaking as he lay back down, pretending to be sick. My sick husband, who was nothing more than a master of lies. I left the house that afternoon without making a sound. I walked back to work with a smile plastered on my face, so convincing that no one suspected the storm tearing through my chest. I was a woman broken, but no one could see the cracks yet. That night, as Martin sat across from me at the dinner table, pretending to be weak, pushing his food around like an invalid, I studied him carefully. His eyes refused to meet mine for long, as though some part of him sensed I knew. But then he never asked. He never confessed. He simply played his role, and I played mine, all while my soul screamed inside. I did not sleep that night. I lay in the darkness, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how many nights he had whispered Caroline's name in his dreams. By morning, I made a decision. I would not confront him immediately. Not yet. If he could play this game, so could I. I needed to be sure. I needed proof. And I needed to look my sister in the eyes and see if she would dare lie to me too. So I started to watch them both. Every lunch break, I drove home unannounced. Every weekend, I tracked Martin's excuses. He said he was going to the pharmacy, but his car would be parked at a diner across town. Caroline claimed she was visiting friends in Baltimore, yet I caught glimpses of her car parked near Martin's office. It became clear. Their affair was not a passing fling. It was a carefully woven web of deceit, stitched together with lies and stolen hours. And still, a part of me could not believe it. I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe Martin had only slipped once. Maybe Caroline had been caught in his charm, just like so many others before. But the truth kept clawing at me, merciless and undeniable. One evening, the phone rang at home while Martin was in the shower. The number flashed across the screen. Caroline. My heart froze. I picked it up, forcing my voice to sound casual. "Hello?" There was silence, then the faintest gasp. Then the line went dead. It was all the confirmation I needed. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at Martin as he slept, his chest rising and falling peacefully as though he carried no weight of guilt. I wanted to shake him awake, to scream in his face, to demand how he could do this to me, to us, to our children. But instead, I whispered to myself, not yet, not tonight, because I knew the confrontation was coming, and when it came, it would break everything wide open. What I did not know then was that Martin's betrayal went even deeper than I imagined. There were truths still buried that would crush me further. And when they surfaced, I would never look at my life the same way again. The weight of the secret pressed on me until I could no longer carry it in silence. Days turned into weeks, and every glance, every word exchanged between Martin and me became poisoned by the knowledge that I held. My chest felt like a cage, and my heart was the prisoner, beating violently against bars of betrayal. I had spent sleepless nights watching him, memorizing the slope of his shoulders, the way his hand twitched when he lied. I wondered if he ever looked at me and felt shame, or if the guilt had died in him long ago. It was a Thursday evening when the dam inside me finally broke. We sat at the dinner table again. I had made roast chicken, his favorite, but he barely touched it. He claimed his stomach was unsettled. My patience had run out. I slammed my fork down, the sound sharp as thunder in the quiet kitchen. "Who is Carolyn to you, Martin?" The words leapt from my mouth before I could stop them. My voice shook, but it carried enough weight to freeze him mid-breath. His eyes flickered up to mine, wide, caught, like a child who had been caught stealing. "What?" he stammered. "Do not lie to me. I heard you. I came home that afternoon, the day you pretended to be sick. I heard every word you said on the phone. You called her. You said you missed her. You said I would never suspect a thing." His fork clattered to the plate. His lips parted, but no sound came out. For the first time in 25 years, I saw pure fear in his eyes. "Tell me," I demanded, my voice breaking. "How long has it been? How long have you been sleeping with my sister?" His head dropped into his hands. He groaned, shaking his head like a man being tortured. "Nancy, please, you do not understand. Do not tell me I do not understand." I screamed, the sound tearing from my throat like a wounded animal. "I have been your wife for 25 years. I have given you my youth, my body, my loyalty, my entire life. And you repay me with this? With her?" Tears streamed down my face, hot and relentless. My chest heaved, my hands trembling on the table. And then he looked up, his eyes red, his face twisted with something darker than guilt. It was dread. "There are more things to this than you think," he whispered. My stomach lurched. "What more could there possibly be, Martin? What could be worse than betraying your wife with her own sister?" His next words shattered me in ways I had not thought possible. She was not the first. The silence that followed felt endless. The clock on the wall ticked loudly, cruelly. My body went numb. "What did you just say?" I asked, barely able to form the words. Martin buried his face in his hands again. His voice was muffled, broken. "I have been unfaithful before, more times than I can count. But Carolyn? Carolyn is different. I love her, Nancy. I cannot stop." A cold chill swept through me. My fingers dug into the edge of the table until my knuckles turned white. 25 years. 25 years I had built a life with a man who had been living a lie. My voice rose, raw with agony. "You brought her into our home. You let her hold our children, laugh at our table, call herself my sister while you were in her bed. Do you even realize what you have done to me? To us? To our family?" Martin's tears spilled down his cheeks. He reached for me across the table, but I shoved his hand away as though it were poison. "You destroyed me. You destroyed everything we built." But then his face hardened, as though a darker truth lingered in the shadows. He leaned back, his chest rising and falling, and said something that froze my soul in place. There are things about Carolyn you do not know, things she has kept from you. If you knew the whole truth, you would see I am not the only one to blame. I stared at him, my breath catching in my throat, the world tilted, unsteady. My sister, my betrayer, was hiding secrets too. And in that moment, I realized this story was far from over. The worst had not yet come. Martin's words hung heavy in the air. There are things about Caroline you do not know. For a moment, I thought I had misheard, but the look in his eyes told me he meant it. They were not just the eyes of a guilty man. They were the eyes of someone carrying more than one truth, someone ready to drag me into a darkness I had not even imagined. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice trembling between fury and fear. Martin swallowed hard, his jaw clenched. Caroline was the one who started it. She came to me first. She said she had always envied you, your marriage, your children, your life. She said she wanted what you had. I resisted at first, but she did not stop. And once it began, I could not let go. His words sliced me open. I shook my head violently, tears blinding me. "No, do not you dare put this on her. You were my husband, Martin. You had the vow. You had the duty. You chose this." He slammed his fist on the table, his voice cracking. "I chose it because she gave me something you stopped giving years ago. She made me feel alive again." That was it. The final blow. The man I had built my life with, the man I had trusted, reduced our 25 years of marriage to ashes with a single confession. I pushed my chair back so hard it screeched against the floor. My chest heaved as I looked at him, the stranger who wore my husband's face. "You will never blame me for your weakness, Martin. Never." I grabbed my purse and keys, my legs trembling as I stumbled toward the door. He called after me, his voice desperate, but I did not turn back. I could not. If I had looked at him one more second, I might have collapsed under the weight of it all. I drove without knowing where I was going. The streets of Delaware blurred through my tears until I pulled over near the river. I sat there in the silence, gripping the steering wheel, letting the sobs tear out of me until there was nothing left but emptiness. Caroline, my sister, my own blood. I thought of her laugh, the way she hugged me during holidays, the promises we made as children to always protect each other. All of it ruined. Days later, I confronted her. She did not even deny it. She looked me straight in the eye with a coldness I had never seen before and said, "I love him, Nancy. You had your chance. Now it's mine." That was the moment I knew my world had truly collapsed. Not only had I lost my husband, but I had lost my sister too. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers, whispered phone calls from relatives, and the heavy silence of my children who looked at both their father and their aunt with disgust. Martin begged me to forgive him, to let him stay, but I could not. Some wounds are too deep to heal, some betrayals too poisonous to overlook. So I walked away. I left the house that once held our laughter, our memories, our life. I packed my things and began again, alone. It was not easy. Nights were the hardest. I would wake up reaching for him out of habit, only to remember he no longer belonged to me. My heart ached, but slowly, piece by piece, I began to rebuild myself.
I learned that resilience is not the absence of pain, but the decision to stand despite it. I learned that betrayal does not define me, but it can refine me. And most importantly, I learned that sometimes losing everything you thought you needed is the only way to rediscover who you truly are. Martin and Caroline, yes, they tried to make a life together. But from what I hear, it did not last. Secrets and lies have a way of destroying even the strongest illusions. They destroyed me, but in the end, they destroyed themselves too. As for me, I have found peace. My children stand with me, and that is enough. I smile again, not because my story was free of pain, but because I survived it. And now I share my story here with you, not to dwell in bitterness, but to remind anyone listening, never ignore the whispers of your heart, never silence your intuition, and never allow betrayal to steal your worth. Thank you so much for staying with me through this story. If you have ever walked through betrayal or heartbreak, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It means the world to me and keeps these stories alive. And remember, even in the darkest storms, there is always a way to rise again.